Bear with me as I try to put my mind around this record. I knew this record was cosmic. I loved it. Stars by Switchfoot. Particularly when the guy, I think he got into the bridge and started singing a cappella, sort of a cappella. His voice, the echoes, it seemingly reflected the expansiveness of the universe. I was like, yes, I loved it. But after I researched this record, gosh, dog it. Probably one of the most sublime records that came out in the 2000s. Stars by Switchfoot. The song Stars is from the album Nothing Is Sound. Nothing Is Sound dealt with some pretty deep themes, darker themes, as in comparison with their previous album, Switchfoot. Their first three albums was put out by a Christian label, but I'll get into all that in just a minute. The album Nothing Is Sound, touching on themes of loneliness, the end of the world, anti-entropy. Entropy, if I remember my physics correctly, from order to disorder, and anti-entropy, the reverse, I guess, going from randomness and disorder back to order. So I think I got it. I think I got it now. At least part of it. The individual. This song is about an individual. He's stepping back. He's chilling. I gotta just chill out from. Look at all this chaos that's going on around me. This randomness. He's looking at the stars. And the idea of anti-entropy comes into play because it looks so orderly. There's a rhythm. There's this eternal dance of gravity and motion that comes into play, and it's eternal. And compare that with the chaos here on this planet. The first verse of this record, and this is killer. Let me read you a few of the lyrics. Let me read you the lyric. I'm gonna read you a few of the verses. I've been thinking maybe I've been part of the cloudy. Maybe I'm the chance of rain. And maybe I'm overcast. And maybe all my luck's washed down the drain. Here he goes to this philosophy of the universe being centered on the individual. Now, according to a source that I got this from, that philosophy goes back to Rene Descartes. Rene Descartes, a French philosopher, I think one of the founding fathers, or one of the founding members of modern Western philosophy, and also the founder of analytical geometry, scientist, mathematician, philosopher Rene Descartes, who lived from 1596, he died in 1650. God, the last year of his life, he lived a life. God, I envy this guy. Intellectual pursuits. And well, here's the deal. The last year of Rene Descartes' life, he moved into a castle in Sweden. Queen Christina. Queen Christina was aware of Descartes' reputation. She thought the world of this guy. She invited him to her castle to start a scientific academy and also to tutor her about love, or the philosophy of love, which led him to come up with a book around 1650 or before he died. And I wrote down the name of the book, but I don't know where I got it at. But anyway, Passion of the Soul. That was the name of the book. But he died not long after he moved in the castle because he was tutoring her at 5 in the morning. 5 in the morning. And he was accustomed to getting up later in the day. And the castle is cold. It's cold up there in Sweden. And you're talking about 1649, 1650. This is light years before global warming. This is way before the Industrial Revolution. And it's cold. He came down. I don't know if it's pneumonia, but he got sick and he died 1650. But enough of Rene Descartes. We go back to the universe centering on the individual on this part of the record. Now, the second verse takes. Let me read you the second verse and I'll go into it in just a minute. The interpretation. Here's the third verse. Stars looking at a planet, watching entropy and pain, and maybe start to wonder how the chaos in our lives could pass as sane. That's from the stars' perspective. Imagine the stars as sentient beings, as intelligent beings. They're looking down on the earth. They're looking down at all the suffering, the chaos, and the pain that people are feeling on this planet. And they're up there kind of serene. They're engaged in this eternal dance, this rhythm. Anti-entropy. You can call it anti-entropy. From chaos to order, this eternal dance the stars are engaged in, and motion and gravity. At least I think that's the philosophy behind this song. I love doing this, trying to interpret deep songs like that. I need to buy that book. Barnes and Noble had this book. I need to buy it. I need to get it. It's called How to Interpret Poems, something like How to Interpret Poems Like a College Professor. Okay, let's get into the history real quick of Switchfoot. Thanks for bearing with me so far. Switchfoot, they're from San Diego, California. They started out as well, I take that back. They were a 4 or 5 man band. But they started out as a 3-man band known as Chin Up in 1996. Consisted of 2 brothers, John Foreman and Tim Foreman. Either one of those brothers, they wrote Stars, by the way. Chad Butler on drums, and they signed a deal with Rethink Records, an independent record label. Something interesting, though, happened. Fate of sorts stepped in before Switchfoot released their first album. A huge Christian record label called Sparrow bought out Rethink Records. And they distributed the first 3 albums by first 3 albums by Switchfoot, rather. Sparrow distributed the first 3 albums by Switchfoot to Christian radio stations, to Christian retail outlets. Therefore, Switchfoot sort of started out as a Christian band. And one of their albums got a Grammy. It was either Grammy nominated or got a Grammy for Best Rock Gospel Album. But their first taste of secular success came in 2002 when 4 of their songs was featured in a movie called A Walk to Remember. Guess who was in that movie? Mandy Moore. She sang one of their songs. Eventually, that led to a deal with a major record company. It was Columbia / Sony something. It was a huge record label. Major label debut, The Beautiful Letdown, double platinum. Sold over 2 million copies, maybe 3 million copies. The 2 hits, Dare You to Move and Meant to Live. Had both of those songs on my fancy playlist in 2004, early 2005. These two records flirted big time with hardcore alternative. Hard enough to satisfy the rock and roll fans, the die-hard rock fans. And yet, it retained enough of a melody, enough of an infectious melody to cross over into pop, to put it within striking distance of getting some airplay on pop radio, both of those songs. And then the album, Nothing Is Sound, came after that, and Stars came from that album. And that song is at number 43 on my fancy playlist. Stars, the Cosmically Inclined. Stars by Switchfoot at number 43 on my fancy playlist, November 6, 2005.